Get started here. This man standing to my right, my immediate right, you can't miss him. He is making his valiant and triumphant return to the 21 Convention stage. He came by last year, and he's excited to be in Orlando. I know he's hopped a couple flights to get here, so he's a little exhausted, but we're gonna have to pry him from this stage. He's really excited to speak. So I hope you guys get a lot out of it. This is the head of PUA Training US, Adam Lyons. Take it away.
Cheers.
Thank you.
All right, guys. So here we are, back in Orlando. I've got a whole bunch of stuff that I want to talk to you guys about today. Some are just my basic observations. Some of it, I found, I don't know if you guys agree with me, but I do a lot of these talks, right? I travel around the world and I go to all these different public speaking summits, and people talk a lot of fluff, don't they? Like, it's something that I've noticed. Like, you'll sit there listening to someone chat for an hour, and the actual content that you can pull away that's useful for you is pretty much useless, right? And there's a reason for that, I'm sure of it, and I'm sure that reason is they're going to sell you a great product at the end of it that's going to have all of that great information in that they kind of hinted about. So I want to, fuck everybody up by changing that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you guys two very specific topics, and I'm going to try and teach them in their entirety. I don't plan on selling you guys anything, but what I do want to do is give you a whole bunch of free stuff on top of the two lessons. So the only website that I want you to take note of, is like to write down, is www.puatraining.com/under21. I spoke to Gambler in the UK, and I've got them to give away a whole bunch of their really expensive paid material for you guys. You can just go on there, and that will be unique for you. Nobody else on the website knows about it. It's only for the people in this room. You can get all that stuff for free. And that's specifically for the under 21 guys. And then, like I said, during the talk, I want to take you guys through two topics that I'm kind of in love with at the moment, that I want to teach. And the first of these topics is the one I'm going to start with, which is closing. Now, there is a massive problem in this community, right? And I noticed it a couple of years ago. And the problem that I had a couple of years ago was that dudes didn't hang around with girls. They just hung around with other guys. I came out and I said it. I stood on stage. I'd been in the community for a while. No one knew who I was. Some idiot gave me a microphone and let me speak on stage. And as soon as I went up there, I went, you guys are all fools. None of you hang around with girls. You go out with guys and speak to guys, but none of you hang around with girls. And since being in the community, the more I've looked at it, the more I've analyzed it, I've realized there is a new problem. Serial openers. Guys that run around opening, right? Now, I mean this in the nicest way. I really don't want to pick on somebody because he seems like a genuine guy, but there was a minute before I came up, the guy that's emceeing said, has anyone got any great stories that happened last night? And this guy goes, yeah, this opener I used. And he told this story of this opener. And it was a funny opener. He's like, put his hand over it, that was me. It was like, who lies more, a fish or a chicken? And it's funny, okay, I get it. But that was the end of the story. He opened. And I see it. I go to these venues. And I see these PUAs running around, opening people. And they're so serious about it. Dude, I got a guy emailed me. I beat my level. I opened 1,000 sets last week. Like, you opened 1,000. You irritated 1,000 women. That's what you did. You went up to them and you spoke at them for a while and then you left. Like, they're so concerned with how many they open. I had people email me, Adam, I've got this problem. I opened this girl using this line. What do you think I should use? On boot camps, do you know what most PUA instructors consider a demo? If you open. Before I got married, when I demoed, I did it specifically to close. I'd make out with the chick. I'd look at the student and go, did you see how easy that was? They'd be like, uh-huh. That was my idea of a demo. It's not an open, but other PUAs are like, well, you should be able to just randomly go up to people and open them. No, you shouldn't. That's opening. That's annoying. That's irritating. Don't open people if you're not going to do anything with it. Close. And that's a massive issue. That's a problem that the community has. And I wanted to address it. Before I do, I want to warn you about some of the hazards of closing. Now, I know that a lot of my really good friends love my stories on stage, and some of them have heard this one. I think the majority of the people in this room won't have. I'm going to warn you in advance. If you have a little bit of a sickly stomach, if you're somebody that doesn't like graphic descriptions, you probably want to put your fingers in your ears for this next story. And I want to tell you about the hazards that come from closing, okay? I met this girl, gamed her very well, And we eventually end up back in my place. Now, there are a number of little, what I love is how all different events come together to cause problems. I don't know if you guys know this. You go, oh, I'll just do that, that doesn't matter, and oh, I've got that going on. But when they come together, everything falls apart. And in this one particular instance, I thought everything was great. I brought the chick home. She was ready for a same night lay. It's all right, not bad. And I'd just perfected my squirting technique. So I'd learned how to successfully make pretty much any girl squirt. Now you'd think this would be a really good combination, right? But I added another factor, because you know, you got to do that. My flatmate wasn't in. And I thought, you know what would be really funny? It would be to do it on his bed. So, not that my bed was full, my bed was empty, I just, you know, wanted to do it on his. If he is watching the video, Amog Scott, I love you very much. Although he doesn't know this happened, as you're about to find out. So, she's lying on the bed, and normally when a girl's squirting, I get them lying on their back, right? But I thought, again, I'll add something else to this mix. Let's get on all fours. Why not? All fours squirting, it sounds like fun. What I'd effectively created, without knowing it, was some kind of rudimentary projectile device. Because she's on all fours, right? With her ass up in the air. And so I'm going at it. Don't watch, but yeah, I'm going at it. And suddenly she goes, oh my God, I'm going to come. I'm like, no, that's okay. It's supposed to happen. Don't worry about it. Relax, let it happen. So she does, and she squirts straight out the back of her, across my mate's bed. Now, I kind of knew that was going to happen. It was kind of going to be funny, you know. What I didn't expect was for her to come on at the same time. And so she had period stains all over the bed that squirted out the back of her. And that's quite possibly the most gross thing that ever happened to me in the game. And you think I'd be proud, right? I closed. Same night lay. Great. Not so great, actually. Funny enough. Closing has problems, okay? You're worried about opening? Be worried about the closing problems. They're more expensive, okay? You have to pay for cleaning bills and stuff. Like, closing problems are much harder. But closing is where the fun is. Closing is where the funny stories happen. Opening, you're really not doing anything. You're just running around speaking to girls, not doing anything about it. And it's another form of anxiety. Like, there is nothing wrong with opening girls. Everybody in this room, some of you might think, I've still got AA. You're always going to have AA. It doesn't go away. You just kind of get over it. You kind of just push past it, and you open. I suspect that almost everyone in this room has opened at least once. If you've done it once, you can do it again. It's not a problem. The problem comes when you're closing. And a lot of people have that issue. Some incredibly big gurus that do talks all around the world, I know for a fact, have a problem with closing. They have sexual anxiety. They have issues that lead up to it. And I was talking to one of the guys in the audience, and I said that I was going to break down today some core elements that you've got to make sure you do before you guys close. Now, I don't know if you guys are aware of how lucky you are. Obviously, all being in Orlando, in Florida, you guys have some incredibly great PUAs to learn from. Now, I'm not often over here. I come over here to do the 21 convention and to go to Disney World. They're like the main reasons I come to Florida. But you guys have got some really good instructors to learn from. And I know some of them have given talks over the weekend and some of them have done them before. Like, and I want to mention them now because I want you guys to realize these are 3 people that I know don't have a problem with closing. And they're people that live in your area. So they're people that you definitely want to meet and hang out with. You know, like, one of them is Sin. Sin's a really good friend of mine, and I promise you that guy does not have a problem closing. If you've met him, you'll know. You can see the kind of person he comes across as. He's not the kind of guy that's going to freak out if a girl's lying down naked in front of him. You know, he's going to go for it. Spear in Miami is another great guy. Somebody else who really doesn't have a problem closing. Whatever you may think of his methods or the way that he goes about, or potentially his dress, I'm not going to pick on him about his dress because he's a friend of mine, but you know, whatever. He's a good friend. The point is, he does close. And the guy that from PUA Training who's been up here, psych. Like, I know he's given a talk already. There's a guy that can close. They all live in Florida. That's really cool. I'm sure they would love me right now to pitch their programs. Don't. Just take them out for a drink. Get them drunk. They'll teach you for free. All 3 of those guys drink. When they get a little bit of whiskey in them, free lessons. Yeah? Take them out, get them drunk. I don't even want to learn about game. I just want to get you drunk. And then start asking them. Take advantage of the fact they live in your area. It's a great thing to do, yeah? Like, especially as they really do know what they're talking about. But I want to help you. I want to give you something while I am here. And I want to take you through some steps of closing. And there are some very big issues that people fuck up, okay? And I do want to, excuse my French, I do want to help you through these things. The first thing you've got to realize is it's a logistical problem. I would say 9 times out of 10, the reason you're not getting laid is a logistical problem. And this student comes up to me one day. He goes, Adam, I've got this problem. I can never bring a girl back to my place. So I'm like, well, dude, do you have a justified reason for it? You know, I start going through everything. And he goes, yeah, I've got all that. And I was thinking, I don't understand why you can't get this girl back to your place. Like, what's the problem? Like, is there anything unusual about your house I should know? He goes, oh yeah, I live 2.5 hours away from the nightclub. I'm like, well, that would be it, mate. I'm like, that would be your problem then. You have a logistical issue. And he goes, yeah, but right, if I've gamed her well enough, she'll just want to come back, right? Yeah. If you've gamed her well enough over a month, perhaps. That 2.5 hour journey is long and boring at the end of a night of fun and drinking and merriment. It's enough time to sober up. It's enough time to get so well acquainted that you could look in the back of the cab on the way home, let alone wait until you get home. In fact, the cab is a better logistical offer than your house. You've got to plan it. Like, you've got to take into account these logistics. And I was saying 90% of the time, the thing that's fucking you up is logistics. You haven't planned for them. Me, my logistics were always completely, perfectly flawless. I set everything up to a T before I went out. Lights, music, everything was set up. And I'm going to take you through how I would go about setting things up before I left my house. Do you know why I did it before I left my house? I did it so it would be ready for when I came home. I also put pressure on myself. Because I know that I've set up my house to be well suited for me when I come home to get laid, I know that if I come home without a girl, I feel really stupid walking through my house alone. So it always encouraged me to make sure I actually did something about it, that I brought somebody home. And I'm going to take you through it. What I did in my house was I set up the lighting so that by the front door, it was really, really light. But in my bedroom, there was a low glow. And throughout the rest of the house, it was like tiered, like this. So each room got slowly lighter as you got to the front door. The reason is, if I had mood lighting on when you walk into my house, the first thing you should do is turn the light switches on. It would kill any hope I had of creating that sexual mood. So I had the light switch on by the front of the house. So she'd come in and it'd be bright. I'd be like, this is my house. She'd go, oh, lovely. I'd be like, hey, let me take you through to the next room. And as you walk down, the light's a bit dimmer and dimmer and dimmer until she's in the bedroom. See, that's how it works. You create that light, that nice little mood swing goes through. Now, the next thing is music. You guys bring a girl home. Like some people, especially PUAs, they're shocked when they bring a girl home. They don't know what's, oh my God, she's in my house. I better find some music. And then they're going to spend half an hour looking through iTunes. No good, no good, no good. I had a playlist set up specifically for bringing a chick home. The way it went through was the first few tracks were quite nice upbeat club tracks that continued from the nightclub. And then they slowly moved down lower and lower and lower until about 12 songs down when it was like slow pumping music, right? And that's how it would work. I would have that entire thing going through my house. And I just had this playlist. Now do not make the typical stupid mistake of calling your playlist Adam's fucking music, okay? That's not cool. You go, I'm just going to put some music on. Adam's fucking music? Like, no, I mean, it's my fucking music. Not whatever. It's bad all round, okay? Call it something cool. I think mine was called, like, Chill Out. That's a nice thing, Chill Out. Like, that was a good name. So come up with a name for it, and then you just walk in, I go, I'm just going to play whatever I was listening to earlier. Play. Oh yeah, it's some rock tracks I was listening to before going out. Whatever it is, yeah? So you've got that entire thing just easing over the music's playing. The next thing you want to sort out, you want to make sure that your bedroom's in a good state. You don't want her to come in to find some leftover stains from a girl that you had on all fours earlier. Yeah? Clean up. Keep your room in a nice state so that when she comes in, it looks good. It looks like you can look after yourself. I was talking earlier about the little clues that you'll give away to a girl that says you have no females in your life. A messy flat is one of them. When a girl comes into your apartment, if it's a state, she's going to be like, oh my God, you need to tidy this up. I have a female friend that when she comes to my house, she cleaned the whole thing. Just because she couldn't stand to sit in dirt. I used to invite her over for lunch. She'd be like, come over, Thursday afternoon. She's like, why? I'm going out Thursday evening. And she'd be like, I don't get it. I'd be like, no, it's fine, just come over, I'll make lunch. And she'd sit there, she'd be sitting down, she'd be like, oh my gosh, your dishes, I just have to do them. I'm like, oh, all right. Oh my God, the hoovering. When was the last time you hoovered? No, I think actually you were the last one that hoovered. 2 weeks ago? Yeah. I'll do that for you. All right, okay. And that was great. Like, that was the nice little relationship we had. She'd clean my whole house. I'd go clubbing in the evening, come back, clean house. Plan it out. Make sure everything's right. Like, women they do that. They groom guys. You've seen it. If you're talking to a girl and your collar's like this, that kills them. I'm sitting in, there's like 3 girls in the room. I've got my collar like this, and they're going like this. All they want to do is come up here and fix it. They do. They groom people. They try and help you look better, right? That's what they're specifically looking to do. So you're going to give away the fact that you've got absolutely 0 skills with women if those little touches are wrong. The final thing that was incredibly important, I made sure that by the side of my bed were condoms. You ever had that problem? You bring a chick home, oh my God, I've got no condoms. Anyone that nods at that, shame on you. That means you had no anticipation of getting laid. You assumed you weren't going to get it. You were just like, yeah, I'm not going to get laid, so I don't need condoms. Have condoms by the side of your bed. Jared's like, I've got it in my pocket, actually. It's like I keep it here. Yeah. Like, you've got to make sure you've got them in the right place where you're going to need them, right? Another thing that I had specifically is when I went out clubbing, I used to bring my motorcycle helmet with me. I brought a spare. Because in England it was illegal for somebody to ride as a passenger on a motorbike with that helmet. If I didn't have a spare helmet, I couldn't bring her home. I said something about myself when I went out with 2 helmets. I said, I'm bringing a girl home. Every night I went out with 2 helmets, and every night I came back with a chick. Plan your logistics. Logistics is the one thing that will mess you up, okay? The one thing. I had one of my instructors. He turns up at my apartment, not even my apartment, my hotel room, at like 2 a.m. with these 4 chicks and another guy. And they come back, and he comes up to me, he's like, Adam, are you sleeping? I'm like, I was. And he goes, okay, I've got some chicks back to the room. I'm going to set up a threesome. I'm like, I think it's going to be a bit hard. He's like, why? I'm like, because I'm in the room. And he's like, yeah, no, it'll be fine, I'll keep it quiet. I'm like, all right. So he brings the girls back to the room. They spend an hour in the room trying to have a quiet party with no music. And then the girls leave because it's a bit freaky. And the next morning he says, I think I know what I did wrong. I was like, what's that? He goes, I shouldn't have brought them to the room. I was like, no, you shouldn't have. It was really stupid. And I think in his head he thought that bringing them to AFC Adam would make it easier to sleep with them. I don't know, I think that was his thinking. And he was like, I want to have a threesome, and AFC Adam's my friend, and I know what room he's in, so I'll bring the threesome to his room, then I'll definitely get it. I'm sure that was like in his head. But like it doesn't work that way. Like PUAs can't, I don't have that ability to like, welcome, I bless this threesome, make it happen. I don't have that. Not that I know of. Not that I know of. So maybe Neil Strauss does. I don't. Okay, he's higher than me. I don't know, but whatever. So, and like it was a logistical problem. He needed to take him somewhere where they would be okay with it. He had to go somewhere else. So logistics will fuck you up, man. So look after logistics. Like if you're gonna look after anything, look after logistics. Logistics can get you laid as well. If you plan your logistics right, and we're going to talk about this, if you've got a justified reason to do absolutely everything, if you can justify bringing her back to your house, and then you can justify playing the music, and you can justify the sex, it's all going to happen. So logistics can be a very big beneficial thing for you. All right. She is not going to make this easy for you, because she doesn't want to be a slut. If she's making it easy for you, beware. Okay? Because you're probably not the first person she's made it easy for. And STDs are really contagious. So be very careful if she's making it that easy. You don't want it to be easy. You want it to be a challenge. You don't want a chick that's just going to jump on top of you and do whatever you want instantly. You want to work for it a bit. You want to make it happen. You've got to make sure that you're leading the situation. She ain't going to do it. She doesn't want to be a slut. So you're going to have to make sure that you're controlling these situations, guiding her through, and making sure that you're pushing forward for the next step. One of the best ways of doing this is to be empathic. Now, this is something that I've noticed makes great PUAs different from people that aren't great PUAs. It's the ability to observe someone's facial expressions and tone of voice and language and understand what emotion that person's feeling. I can talk to a girl and very quickly I can tell whether she's completely freaked out by me or if she's attracted. My experience of talking to so many women has helped me with that. And by being empathic to what she's thinking, I know how to handle problems. And what I try and do is I take the experience of a past problem I fucked up and I use it to help with a future problem. An example of this. I was walking a girl back to my house and it never even occurred to me that on the way to my house, I have to walk through an alley. It didn't even figure I walked through a dark alley to go to my house. My house was 5 minutes away from the nightclub. I live close to the nightclub, and there is a shortcut that shaves half an hour off the journey through a dark alley at 2 a.m. with a girl that I've never met before. The first time I walked the girl through there, she physically recoiled. She went, she walked through the alley like this. It took me half an hour to calm her down afterwards. She's like, I'm sorry, I thought you were going to kill me. I'm sorry. You read about it all the time. I random guy, he's cute, brings me to his house that's supposedly 5 minutes from the club, takes me down an alley, kills me. I thought it was going to happen. She's like, I need a moment. And she's like drinking. And so I realized that this alley was going to hinder my gaming effort. Now I could have done the typical PUA thing. Well, if she was attracted to me, it wouldn't matter, right? I've got attraction, fuck that. Fuck the alley. She don't even care about her own life safety because she wants the cock. No. That's not really going to help, actually. So instead, you deal with the objection. And you deal with it in advance. I could spend half an hour fixing the problem afterwards, or I could know that alley is an issue. And what you do is you disqualify it. You disqualify the situation. Now, there's a whole bunch of blank faces looking at me right now when I say disqualify. And they're looking at me like that because they see that word written down on websites a lot. Just disqualify, you'll be fine. Disqualify, great. Wait, what is that word? What does that even mean? When you're disqualifying a situation, what you're really trying to do is you're going to make it very clear that it isn't a problem in advance of the situation. And there are a number of different ways of doing it. My personal favorite is to kind of make it exaggerated. I like making it bigger than it is. And you can make it bigger in a positive way or a negative way. For example, I'll be walking down the alley and I'll suddenly say to the girl, oh my God, there is a really dark alley. And that's the only way to my house. You're not a mass murderer, are you? I hope you're not, because if you're a mass murderer, this would be the perfect chance for you to go, are you trying to kill me? And she'd be like, no, don't be stupid, of course I'm not trying to kill you. Look, it's an alley, see, you're safe. I'm like, oh, great. Oh, no problem. She looks after me. You go back to the alley. Oh my God, there could be like vampires or werewolves like hiding around. Even worse, zombies. There could be zombies like completely filling this alley. I die. Would you protect me? Of course I'd protect you. Bam, we're through the alley. There are some PUAs here that are thinking, you'll lower your value by being scared of fake zombies. That's not going to help you get laid. Okay. I promise you I got laid a lot by that. But just in case you need to do it the other way and make yourself feel really big and manly, you can do it the other way. You can go to the alley and you can be like, oh, just so you know, this dark alley is where I murder people. Could you do me a favor? I didn't bring a gag today. Could you just hold your lips quiet as I'm stabbing you? Would that be okay? Because what kind of a killer is going to tell the person first? She'll be like, oh, you're so stupid, don't be silly. And then you walk down the alley, fine, no problem. Exaggerate the situation. You can even go, wait, there's an alley here. I'll protect you. And walk down. It doesn't matter. You disqualify the situation. You know it's a problem. You deal with it first. Yeah? Be empathic. You don't have to be psychic. You just have to listen to a previous situation that fucked up and learn from it. Okay, every time I speak to... Like, I had this one guy, he speaks with a lisp. All the time. He's got a problem with a lisp. And he knows that's a problem with communicating with girls. He knows it's an issue. So he goes to really loud nightclubs and does it all physically and verbally. Physically, he doesn't bother with the verbal stuff. He keeps it all very much a sexual kind of dancey kind of thing. Because he knows the lisp is a problem. He can't go to a loud club and be very clever with words because he has an issue with the way he speaks that people can't hear him properly. He just deals with it. He disqualifies the situation. He just renders it completely pointless. When he does speak to them, he disqualifies it again. And he'll make a point of it. He'll exaggerate it. He'll be like, hey, look, just so you know, I've got a bit of a lisp. You might not be able to hear me properly. But he's already got attraction because she loved him. So she'll just be like, oh, it's fine. I can make do. He works around it. Or he just acts like it isn't a problem because he's dealt with the situation and generated the attraction first. Whichever way he's going to deal with it, disqualification is a very powerful tool to have, especially when you're trying to lead somebody down dark alleys or what have you. So, say you've disqualified a situation, you've led her down. What else can you do? What other things can you do to make it happen? False choices. False choices are one of the best ways of leading somebody. You ever tried this thing? Can I buy you a drink? That's not a great choice, because there's a yes or no involved in it. And if she says no, you're kind of screwed, because she doesn't want a drink. So you give a false choice. Instead, you could say to her, hey, what's your favorite drink? When she answers that question, the act of answering it implies that you now have a positive chance of taking her to get that drink. So she goes, I like vodka cranberry. You go, oh, great, you know what, listen, I really fancy vodka Red Bull. Come on, I'll get you a drink, let's go. You lead the situation. In her head, she's just made a decision about it. Except the decision wasn't whether she'd go or not, it was which of the drinks she's going to have. You bypass the whole problem. I used to bring girls back to my house by cooking pancakes or waffles, because I just so happened to be good at cooking either pancakes or waffles. And so I'd say to the girls before bringing them back, I'd be like, hey, do you like pancakes or waffles? And the girl would be like, pancakes. I'd be like, I make the best pancakes. Actually, I don't want to say it, but they're some of the best in the world. They're pretty damn special, actually. I think you'll never be able to find pancakes as good as these. And she goes, well, how do I even know? I haven't even tested them. All right, it's on. It's on. I'm going to make some pancakes. In fact, I'm hungry now. Come on, let's go make some pancakes. I'll take them back to my house. Lead the situation. Give these false choices. They make everything so much easier. I gave a talk a while back, and at the end of it, I gave a qualification I used to give to girls. I would literally, before bringing a girl back to my house, I'd say to them, you know what, I like you. You're a pretty cool chick. And I'm definitely attracted to you. And because I had pre-selection, I'd say to the girl, now I know you've seen me with a whole bunch of other girls, but I'm going to be honest with you. You're the one that I like. But I'm going to have to ask you a question. And I want you to think very carefully, because your response to this question is going to tell me whether you're the girl that I'm taking home tonight, or whether I'm going to keep partying here and finding somebody better. And she's like, okay. She's listening to this question. I'm like, I only want to hear one word answer out of you, okay? I don't want you to mess me around. This is a serious question. This is close to my heart. At this point, I lock in, put my foot up against the wall, lean back. She's like, okay. All right. Spit or swallow? She looks at me all serious. She's like, swallow? It doesn't matter, right? If she says spit, I'll be like, oh, okay, good, yeah, it's not bad. It doesn't matter, right? I don't give a fuck. Spit or swallow, whatever, as long as I come, I don't care. Like, who cares? So lead the situation. Give them false choices. Don't make, like, we had this great one. Another thing to do with leading, we do this test. I don't know if you guys have seen Dating Science on YouTube. If you haven't seen it, it's my personal little hobby. Thank you, the one fan. Dating Science is a TV show we made specifically for YouTube about psychology experiments. And one of the experiments is about how to make somebody comply more. And we followed this study by Stanley Milgram. The show's, you can watch it, it's free, it's on YouTube, just type Dating Science. But the experiment was done by Stanley Milgram that came up with, if you give somebody a justified reason for something, they're that much more likely to comply. And in the test, we went up to girls and said, can I have that seat? We had a 100% rate of if you asked a girl for a seat, she said no, which proves something to us. One, if you don't have a justified reason, then you've got a very low chance of making it happen. And two, women will not give up their seat. Fuck that, no. She was like, no. Not one. Hi, could we have that seat? No, actually. No. Women are defensive about their seats, so that's not going to happen. So then we gave a justification. We're like, I'm sorry to bother you, can I have that seat? It's just I've got a bad leg. This is a believable justification. The guy goes, oh yeah, of course, no problem, have a seat. She lets you sit there. What's really funny is we also had a 100% compliance rate when we said, can I have that seat because I have a nose? They went, yeah, no problem. Thanks, nose. And sit down. They need a justification. So leading girls by justification is actually a really powerful tool to have. They've got to justify it in their head. Why am I doing this again? What's this for? And it doesn't always have to make sense. I've got this great story. One of my friends in London, it's one of my favorite stories. He's not even a PUA anymore, which is such a shame because I think he's engaged. but he's a great guy. And he met this chick, and he isolated her out of the venue, and just started walking her home. I think he took her out of the venue to have a cigarette outside or whatever. He just started walking her home. And she started going with him. And then she starts going, where are we going? And he's like, all right, we're fine. Where are we going? Oh, where are we going? Where are we going? Where are we going? And he's just like, oh, shit. And he knew he needed a justification. So he stops her and he goes, I'm taking you back to my place so you can see the dolphins from my window. She goes, oh, okay. He lives in London. The only thing out of his window are tramps in the street below. And maybe a Starbucks. That is the closest to a dolphin she's going to see is the Sea Maid woman on the Starbucks logo. That is it. But she's like, oh, okay, yeah, no problem. She's from London. She knows there are no dolphins outside his window. She just needed that peace of mind. I'm not going to give you my chair. Oh, you have a nose? Oh, fuck, sorry. I didn't notice. I'm sorry. Right, here's the seat. They need that justification. So you're going to have to give it to them. You're going to have to think about why are you doing it and justify everything. What's really funny is if you watch that TV show, the guy that does it is one of my students. He goes up and does all these experiments. And at the end, he goes, I can't believe it fucking works, man. I can make him do everything. I'm so fucking powerful. And we videoed him saying some of this stuff, right, on camera. And he goes, I'm amazing. He goes, Adam, you've transformed me. He's like, I've been working with you, but this is the most amazing thing. And I'm like, oh, dude, you're welcome, man. That's so cool. So then we go and have a drink. And he goes, I'm going to do some dance floor game. I'm like, okay, cool, man. So he goes up to this chick and he goes, do you want to go for a dance? And she goes, no. I slapped him. I was like, are you really that stupid? I was like, you just did this whole filming for 2 hours with me. And you're going to go, do you want to dance? Justify it. Do you want to dance? I've got 2 feet. Whatever you say, it doesn't matter. Justify it. If you don't justify it, she's not going to go along. She's not going to follow you. You need to have a justification for what you're doing so that she's going to feel comfortable going into it. And it is a little bit easier if that justification is believable. It is. You know, they need to know. They need you to make it a little bit easier for them. And I've got a catch-all justification I do use. And it's one that I want to teach you guys. And it'll be fine, trust me. And I love this one again because Stanley Milgram, the psychologist, he did another experiment. And he did an experiment into compliance. And I don't know if you guys know this test, some of you will. They had a box. And on this box were a number of switches. Okay? And each of the switches would give an electric shock to the person in the other room. Do you guys know this study? Some of you? Yeah, good. And he found that the majority, or a lot of people, were very comfortable hitting a switch that would kill the other person. They believed it would kill them. It didn't actually kill them, but they believed it. And a lot of people would do that just because they were told to. And it would increase even higher if the person doing the study would take the responsibility. Now, as a PUA, this is very important because one of the tools that you can use is you can take the responsibility of the situation. And it's something that we're going to talk about. But before we go into that, I do want you to understand, if you aren't leading these situations, if you aren't controlling it and making it happen or allowing her to follow you, then she really isn't going to go along with what you want. You're not going to end up closing. And the entire aim for this is to make sure that you're getting these closes, right? If you're just running around opening chicks and talking to them, you're not going to get anywhere. You've got to start planning it out and making sure it happens. And at the end, I am going to tell you, I'm going to break through how you can use the taking responsibility to make sure they do go along with a lot of things. But you don't just want to rely on that one line. You don't just want to be taking responsibility. You want to also be allowing them to, kind of take control. You want her to think of it as her idea. One of the things that I like to do, like I said, I like to take girls home to have pancakes or waffles or what have you for breakfast. And the way I do it is I don't just say, do you like pancakes or waffles? I get talking about food. I get talking about food about 2 hours before the end of the night. So she gets hungry. Because you're in a club for 4 hours, 5 hours, and there's no food. And I know if I talk about food about 2 hours before the end of the club, she's going to be hungry at the end. And then all I have to do is just towards the end of the night, because I've been talking about food earlier on, I'll be like, oh, I am hungry. I could kill for like a Big Mac right now. Right now, Big Mac. Yeah, that's what I want. And the girl will be like, oh, I know what you mean. I get her talking about food. We'll keep gaming, we'll keep chatting and laughing. I'm not really going to take her in the venue, because, I've got a little bit more class than to just fuck chicks in toilets. Personally, I know other people specialize in it, not my thing, right? I want to take her home. I want my bed. I want my music. I want to sleep afterwards. So I make sure that I talk about food. Then just before the end of the night, I'll say to her, hey, pancakes or waffles? She'll be like, pancakes, why? I'll be like, make the best pancakes. And then at the end of the night, I know she's hungry, we've already had this conversation, I lead her to my house. I take her out of the venue. I go, hey look, my place is just around the corner. I'll walk you back there. Or, have you ever been on a motorbike? I'll take you for a nighttime ride on the streets. It's amazing. Stick her on my bike and start driving through. My very first talk I gave an example of how I used to bring girls home on my bike. I would literally get the girl to say, oh, give me a ride on your bike. And so I'd take them for a ride, and they'd be like, oh, can you take me home? I'd be like, oh, I don't want to. Come on, please take me home, give me a ride home. Oh, I don't want to, man. Oh, you annoy me. No, shut up. I don't want to take you home. Please drive me home, please, on the bike. Oh, come on. Because they don't want to get a cab or sit in a bus all the way home. They want to ride, and being on a motorbike's cool. So I'd turn around to them and go, all right, fine. I'll give you a ride. Okay. And I'd pull up outside my house. I'd get off, I'd take my bike helmet off. And she'd look at me and she'd go, what are we doing here? I'm like, we're going inside. She'd go, this isn't my house. I'm like, no, it's my house. She'd go, why are we here? She goes, I thought you were taking me home. I am taking you home. I'm taking you home in the morning. Like, I'm going to sleep first. Like, fuck that. I told you I was tired. Like, I'm sleeping. You can have a spare bed or something. It'll be fine. Justify it. Bring them home. Get them into the house. And besides, I'm going to make you those most amazing pancakes that you've never had before. So then we bust out the pancakes. I cook pancakes for her. She eats the pancakes. I make up my bed for her. And I make up my bed for myself on the couch. She has a justified reason to sleep over. She's not freaked out. She knows what I'm doing, right? I'm sleeping in a different bedroom. I'm making out with her. I sit in her room, my bedroom, in my bed next to her, where the lighting's all set up. Kissing her, making out with her, turning her on. Slowly building it up. We're in a dark room. No one knows how we got there. It's an in-joke for everyone in the crowd. She's turned on. It's going to happen. So, what I want to do is make sure that I'm leading that situation. And if you guys want to get closes, you're going to have to create this. What I talk to my personal students about is creating a funnel. You want to create a system where you can lead to one situation where you're going to close. So in order for you to make it happen, you have to first get her out of the venue. That's the first thing you've got to do. It really doesn't matter what you do in the club as long as you keep the conversation going, because your real aim isn't to F-close her, it's to get her out of the venue with you going somewhere else. And food is a really good justification. So you're both hungry, you go out. Maybe you bounce to yours to eat pancakes. Maybe you bounce to a Chinese restaurant and get takeaway. Maybe you go to a little taco stand. I don't know, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. But you need to be able to get her from the club to that place first. Justify it, leave, explain, give false choices, whatever. Get them to the taco stand. You're both eating tacos, explain you're cold. Tell her you'll give her a ride somewhere. Tell her you want to show your music collection. Because your next aim after getting her out for food is to get her to your place. So now you need a new justification. Maybe you got the food to go and you want to go and eat it somewhere warm. Think about it. Sit down with a pen and paper. We're all geeks. If you're in this room, you're probably a geek. Get pen and paper, map it out, draw a diagram. I don't know, do something fun. Do the fun part, create it, calculate it. What could she say? What is the best way? What is the best way of making sure these things happen? Plan it out. Get that entire funnel set up. Once you get her to your house, sit her in front of your computer, listen to music, watch YouTube videos, escalate, turn her on, kiss her neck, get her into your bedroom. The easiest way of getting her into your bedroom, set up a bed for her, make a bed for yourself in a different room. Then just go into bed with her. Doesn't matter. She just needs to be able to justify it, to rationalize everything. And one of the best ways of getting her to comply is to take responsibility. And the line that I absolutely love using, like everyone's like, Adam, what's your best line? Like, what's your best line? And I know they're talking about what is your best opener. I know that's what they mean. I know they're like, what is your best line? They want to hear me say, do you know where the nearest Starbucks is? They want to hear that. But that is not my best line. Did you know most women cannot remember the very first thing you say to them? The opener is actually irrelevant. RSD have proved the opener is irrelevant. Salads and croutons thing that I don't even understand. But it works, right? Why does it work? Because the opener doesn't matter. You want a line that really works? You want to take responsibility. And one of the best ways of doing it is, don't worry about it. Trust me. Don't worry about it, trust me. It's probably my favorite line of all time. Don't worry about it, trust me. It'll be fine, it'll be okay. Don't worry about it, it's on me, I've got it covered, it'll be okay, it'll be fine. Reassure them, you're taking the responsibility. You're controlling it. By making that justification and taking the responsibility, she's going to feel very comfortable with you. And I've got a bit of a story that I'm going to wrap up before we do a bit of a Q&A on this with. And it's about a particular girl, and I think this was personally my best set. I think out of every single girl that I've ever met, this was the one where everything came together perfectly. And the illustration of it is how fast it happened. Well, you could consider it taking a really long time, depending on which way you look at it. I met this chick, and she was a straight up. To me, she was an easy 9, maybe a 10. She was tall, she was from Latvia, she had a very slim waist, she had massive breasts, she was blonde, she was very intelligent. There's fist pumps in the crowd. So she was a very, very hot chick. And I met her in a nightclub, and I start gaming her, I make out with her, and I swap contact details with a plan to meet her the next day, and she tells me that she's going back to Latvia the next day and she can't possibly meet. So the next day she goes back to Latvia, and that's it. And I can admit that when I first met her, my game wasn't, I wasn't where I am now. I wasn't. It was a lot worse. A year later, to the day, I'm in the same nightclub on the same night, and there's the fucking chick. I'm like, no way, there she is. It turns out this is an annual thing. Every year she comes to London for a week with her friends and parties, and so here she was again. And this time I'm not going to be, this is a year later, we're now talking about, AFC Adam, not just Adam London. This is I've become known in the community now. Now, there's no fucking way I'm not going to bang this chick. So I go up to her, I'm like, hey! And she's like she doesn't even know me. Literally like she doesn't know me. And I know she knows, because she looked at me 3 times first, but she just was going to do that I'm a hot blonde, fuck you, I don't even know you. And I just didn't even put up with any of it. I just looked up to her, I was like, don't even fucking try it. I know you know who I am. What's up? And she goes, you caught me. And so we get talking, right? We're laughing, we're joking. It takes about 3 or 4 minutes before I've escalated up and we're kissing and making out again. This time I tell her, I've got to go. I've got to meet some friends of mine. We're having a party tonight. I've got to go, and I can't invite you. It's a private thing. But I want to see you again. And she goes, I leave tomorrow, sorry. I'm like, don't worry about it. I want to take you for the best coffee you've ever had. Do you like coffee? She's like, yeah. I was like, I'm going to take you to the most amazing coffee place. Just half hour for coffee. And she goes, all right, I'm down for that. I'm like, cool. Here's the time and place tomorrow. I'm now going to tell you guys my number one thing to stopping flakes. This is not 100% guaranteed to stop flakes, but it will stop you looking stupid if they do flake, which to me is more important. In the morning, I text them, hey, just so you know, I'm going to be 5 minutes late because I've got a meeting and I'm going to be late. I text them in the morning. That gives them the chance to reply, oh, actually, I can't make it. It gives them the chance to get out of it without me saying, are we still on? So I'm always like, I'm going to be 5 minutes late, just so you know. Terribly sorry. So she replies back, no problem, same meeting place? I'm like, yeah, I'll see you then. So we meet at this train station. I meet her at the train station, I make out with her as soon as I see her. Why? To remind her that the night before, we made out. I make sure that happens because I specifically want her to remember and to know that I'm about to escalate really freaking fast because I have half an hour to get this chick. That is it. And I only made out with her after 5 minutes of meeting her the night before, after not seeing her for a year when I only spoke to her for 10 minutes. So this is all very fast in reality. We start walking down the road, we turn around the corner, and we go into my house. And she goes, whoa, what are we doing here? I thought you were going to take me to a coffee shop. I said, no, I said I was going to take you for the best coffee you've ever had. I didn't say anything about it being in a coffee shop. It's going to be the best coffee. And she goes, all right. So she comes into my house. Now I realize I have a problem. This is where I realize that I'm going to rely on my game very heavily. Because I can't really make coffee. And in fact, don't have any coffee in my house. Now some PUAs would think, I'm going to run out and buy some coffee before she gets here. I didn't give a fuck about coffee. This is about closing. I don't want to make her a cup of coffee. I want to make her suck my dick. It's different. I don't need coffee for that. They're different. They're different things. So I bring her into my house, I put some music on and start dancing with her. And I go into the kitchen and I put the kettle on. Because I'm pretty sure that coffee starts with hot water. That's part of it. I know that's part of it. So I'm like, fuck, that'll do. I put a lot of water in there. That takes longer to boil. I don't know if you know that, but it does. So there's a lot of water boiling. Whatever. So I then come back out, I turn the music on, start dancing and kissing her neck. She goes, what are you doing? I say to her, don't worry about it, it'll be fine. Trust me. So she goes, okay. We're dancing, we're kissing, and I'm like, hey, let me show you something, and I take her hand. She goes, what do you want to show me? I'm like, oh, it's in the other room. She goes to me, I'm not going to sleep with you. If a girl ever says to you she's not going to sleep with you, do you know what that means? It means she's going to sleep with you, because she's thinking about it. So we walk around and we go back into my bedroom. We're now in my bedroom, and I push her down on the bed. She's like, oh, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm just showing you my bed. And she's like, oh. I'm like, look, don't worry about it, we're fine, trust me. So I lay her down, I get on top of her, I start kissing her neck. I kiss her face, I'm like turning her on. And again, remember, we're in a dark room, we're alone, no one knows we're there, she's getting turned on. Yeah, it's a very powerful thing. She's getting turned on, and I start putting my hand in between her legs and really getting her wet. So she's sitting there, she's lying there, and she looks at me and she says to me, she goes, what are you doing? I was like, it's pretty obvious, I'm turning you on. And I go, look, don't worry about it, it'll be fine, trust me. She's like, okay. And then I take her top off and I start fondling a massive breast, a massive thing. Whatever, so I'm playing with those, and kissing her, it's getting a bit more, bit more hot and heavy. And I start to pull her underwear down, her trousers, sorry, pants, you guys got right, trousers, whatever. So I'm pulling them down, and she said no. Now, I don't know about you guys, I've got a thing. A, I don't like really dealing with LMR, because I believe if a girl wants you, she should want you. B, I would never take a chick that says no. So I'm kind of in this problem that A, I'm trying to do this really, really fast, and it's kind of freaky even for me, and B, she just said no. So I think really, really quickly, and I probably come up with the cleverest thing I've ever come up with a hard-on and only 2 seconds of thinking time, which is pretty... If you think about the calculating power, bearing in mind I'm using my little brain, not my big one now, like, that's impressive thinking, yeah? Like, with the big brains engaged, I can come up with anything. Like, when the little brain's in control, it's a smaller surface area. There's less processing power in the little head. So, yeah, so, he's thinking different things to me. He's like, just, who cares if she said no, do it. And I'm like, no, that's wrong. So, I come up with this great thing. I say, look, it'll be fine, trust me. I am going to count down from 5. I'm not going to make you do anything you don't want to do. So all you have to do, kiss her neck, is tell me, kiss her neck, stroke in between her legs, to stop. 5, kiss her. 4, kiss her some more. 3, grind on her. 2, kiss her a bit more. 1, she didn't say stop, okay? Trousers down, she let me do it. Wicked. So we're kissing, we're making out, we're now hardcore grinding on each other. And then I look at her again, I start putting my thumb down, like going to take off like the underwear, and I look at her and I'm like, okay. And she goes, no, stop. And I go, okay, let's do a countdown. It'll be fine, trust me. If you want me to stop, just say stop. Kiss her again. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Take her underwear off. She looks at me and she goes, there is absolutely no way that I'm going to sleep with you. And I go, I'm not planning on sleeping, don't worry about it. It'll be fine. It'll be fine, trust me. That's it. So that's how you make the close happen. It's so very easy to do. You can build it up and make it work. And you can see that at any point, if you're having a problem, then whenever you guys want to get your closes, make sure that you do these things. 1, that you take control of the situation by organizing your logistics. If you do not organize your logistics, you are not getting laid. I don't care how great you are or how much game you have or how attracted to you she is. If you do not have your logistics down, it is not going to happen. I don't care how great you are. If you bring 4 chicks back to your hotel room, that's awesome. They probably wanted to fuck you. Don't take them to a room where AFC Adam is trying to sleep. Because I promise you, as much as I want you to get laid, at that moment in time, I'm going to fuck up your game. I want to sleep, okay? So make sure that happens. Organize your logistics. Lead the situation. Be empathic. What problems does she have? If you're talking to her and she's freaking out a bit, you did something wrong. And the thing you did wrong is probably freak her the fuck out. So make sure that you look at what you did. Did you justify it? Did she have a justified reason for going along with it? Were there false choices involved? Was it grounded? Was it believable? Make sure you've got that in place. Have your final goal in mind at every stage. You are not thinking, I've met her in the club, I need to fuck her. No, I've met her in the club, I need to get her out of the club somewhere else with me in a venue change. Then I need to get her from that place to my place. You might be able to take her straight to your place, depends how good you are. But you do the venue change first. Then from that point, you can bring her to your house. When she's in your house, you set everything up with the logistics to get her into your bedroom. When she's in the bedroom, you make everything happen. And at any point during this process, when you're trying to close her, if at any point you have an issue, all you have to say is, don't worry about it. Trust me. Thanks, guys. Okay. All right, guys. So this talk is the first time I've ever done this without my notes. So I'm a little bit nervous, trying to make sure I remember it. It's a very technical talk. At the very beginning, when I first started talking to you guys, I said that a lot of people chat fluff. And fluff really annoys me. I hate that when I sit down to I've been watching these video seminars, learning stuff recently, not game stuff, but video editing and a whole bunch of other stuff. And I watch them, and this guy is like, this is a free 1 hour seminar. So I watch it, and at the end of it, I don't even know what I learned. Nothing, I think. He spoke for an hour, and I didn't take anything away from it. And I wanted to make sure that the first talk was very much specifically about closing. The whole thing was about how you can close and different ways of doing it. This talk is a bit more powerful than that, and it's a bit deeper, and it's a bit more technical. And before I go into it, I want to explain to you guys something. A bit of a background story. I love when PUAs talk about all their best accomplishments. Have you noticed that? They get this one great accomplishment, and they hold on to it. And they're like, this is me, I did this once, so I must be great. And most people don't know about a lot of my accomplishments, so I've kind of kept it quiet. Some of you would have heard about my Maxim thing, where Maxim got me to infiltrate an office and pick up a chick while she was working. Some of you may have heard about the celebrity that I had in the UK. She wasn't really a celebrity, she was a Big Brother contestant that came out of the house, but whatever, it counts. Some would have heard of models, some of you obviously seen Amanda, everyone knows different things. But no one ever talks about their failures, right, where they looked really fucking stupid. So I want to talk about a point where I looked really dumb. And I'd been in game about 4 months, and some of you might know I progressed very fast. And within the UK, I was already teaching as an assistant coach within about 3 to 4 months. And one of my students from the boot camp, he was like, Adam, I really loved learning from you. I'd like to come out on a one-on-one with you. And I'm like, well, I haven't really been doing it long enough to charge, so how about we just go out for fun, the two of us, for free, and I'll just teach you. And the guy's like, okay, great. So we go into this really high-end nightclub, and it's only about the 3rd time I'd been to a high-end nightclub. This is really early in my game career. And we go in, and I'm like, yeah, this will be fun. We'll walk around, I'll help him out. And sitting in the corner of the room is a group of about 15 tens, just sitting there, having a party, partying and drinking. And I'd never gamed an 8 successfully at that point, let alone a 10. I was just good at helping approaching. You've got a fear of approaching? No problem, come with me, I'll help you. Look, now you don't have a fear. He says, Adam, show me how to get 10s. And I was like, whoa. And this is before I was AFC Adam. I don't know if you guys know this. I used to just be Adam London. And I added the AFC after my name specifically because of this point, because I wanted people to realize that I wasn't amazing. I was okay, but I was definitely not Adam go and pick up 10s. So I see these chicks in the corner of the room, and I'm like, all right. So I go up to them, and I think over my shoulder, this is how old it was, I think I was like, I want to ask you girls a question. Who lies more? Whatever. It was something lame like that, right? And the girls just kind of laughed at me and blew me off. Not in a good way. And I was like, So I went back to the guy, and he goes, what happened? Did you get blown out? I'm like, no, what I did there was, I was just feeling the water. That girl was a bitch, probably a lesbian. But I've got a better way of doing it. I'm warming up. And he goes, okay. He's like, big eyes and everything. And so I'm going to go back in. So I go back up, and I use another line. I think, I like salad, I don't know, whatever I use. I use something else. And it didn't work again. I was like, shit. And I'm kicking myself. I can't get into these 10s. And I look for my student, and he's nowhere to be seen. I'm like, where the fuck's he gone? Oh, there he is, partying with the 10s. Wait, what? And there he was. He just sort of went, hey! And the girl's like, hey! And he just started dancing with them. So there's my student in with the set. And I was like, fucking hell, fuck. Now I've got to go in. Now, of course, the easiest way for me to go in would be like, oh, this is my friend, hey. But because I was AFC Adam, but not then, I wanted to do it myself. So I was like, no, I have to get in. I've got to make this happen, right? So I used this line I thought was pure genius at the time. And I went up to the girl and I was like, hey, I'll ask you a question. I give guys advice on confidence and going up to girls and talking to them. But although I can help them pick up any of these, ugly chicks in the rest of the club, I have no idea how to talk to a girl as hot as you and get you guys attracted. Do you mind if I hang around all night and just watch guys hit on you and make notes and keep track of what works and what doesn't? And the chick's like, yeah, of course you can. I'm an expert. If you want to sleep with me, you got to have a lot of money. You got to have like a nice car, maybe a boat. Boats, so I love boats. And so she was telling me all these great things. And I was like, okay, that's obviously none of that works. And I was like, just making notes myself. And so I was in with this group. And my friend was doing really, really well, and I wasn't. And I was sort of sitting around kind of like being a bit bummed. And then 5 more girls turned up. Now, I'd recently learned that the 15 super hot chicks were super hot because they were actually models from Miami. Funny enough, that's where they came from. And they were doing a tour of Europe and London for some big modeling agency. So these other 5 chicks turn up. I didn't get introduced to them, but all of them introduced themselves to me and kissed me on the lips. And I thought to myself, why did they do that? This puzzled me for a very long time. And I realized something. 2 things. The first, I teach. Pre-selection. I had a whole bunch of girls around me. I was pre-selected. But actually, something bigger was happening. It wasn't just pre-selection. Pre-selection is just the thing that I tell people to make, pre-selection's great, we'll sign up for Adam's website. But in reality, something bigger was happening. What was actually happening was they assumed I was a somebody. Because no other guy would just hang around a bunch of 15 beautiful models that the girls knew. And they weren't going to be the ones that were stupid enough to go, who the fuck are you? When I could be their agent, a potential agent, a client, a photographer. They had no idea who I was, so they had to treat me like I was amazing. I made out with one of those chicks that turned up, one of those 5. A couple of weeks later, I fucked her. My first super hot chick. Pretty impressive. And it stuck with me. But I didn't understand what happened until a lot later. There was another situation. I was known in London for my princesses. Now, I don't know if you guys have heard this or not yet, but my princesses was my very first entourage. My very first idea of entourage game. It was a group of girls that I went out with and I hung out with. And the way I hung out with them was, I met them through a friend of a friend, another girl that I gamed who introduced me. And the girls knew what I did for a living. They knew that I was a dating coach. And they said I could hang around with them. And I said, yeah, I'll hang around with you guys. I was like, but I won't hit on any of you. And they're like, all right. And they gave me that look like it would work. I was like, I'm not going to hit on any of you because I don't want to ruin the friendship. But I do have this ability to make women absolutely want me. Now, at this point, I knew that what I really wanted was the pre-selection from the girls. And what happened here was I would hang out with all these girls, and I would get my pre-selection. And girls would come and open me. There'd be like some hot chick on the other side of the club. She'd walk up to me and all these girls. I'd be like, hi, nice to meet you, what's your name? And the girls that I was with would freak out. They'd be like, you are amazing. How are you doing this? It's pre-selection, right? They had no idea it was because of them that I was getting all this stuff. They're like, you're great, oh my God, that's so clever. Like, I've never seen a guy wanted by so many women. And then I started making out with the chicks that I said I wouldn't make out with, and I slept with some of them. And and again, something happened. Now, what happened was the perception of the situation was different. We each had different perceptions. And then what's really funny is the very first topic of game that I got into is actually the one that I'm going to teach you guys now, which is the concept of frame. And more importantly, frame control. I was never sure if I was going to teach this subject. And after a couple of trials, after talking to some friends, Psych being one of them, I decided I would teach it. And I've given this talk a couple of times before with my notes, so this will be the first time about them. It is very technical, and it's something that I use extensively myself. It's something that my top instructors use extensively, and it is ridiculously powerful. With that being said, I'm going to give a disclaimer right now. If you use this, I want you to, with your best judgment, use it correctly. The material that I've taken has come from some really interesting sources that include Stanley Milgram's experiment when he managed to convince people to murder somebody else, that include some very powerful psychological techniques, that includes studying Hitler's propaganda machine. So there's a lot of influence in this particular subject. And I want to give the disclaimer that I can't control what you guys use it for, but I would like to know that you're specifically using it for good. Bear in mind, leave women better off than when you first found them. Don't go around just breaking hearts because you can. Don't use it for anything other than game, or maybe getting a career promotion. I don't know. Use it cleverly. Don't fuck around with it, because it is that dangerous. When I was first creating this, I had to create examples. I'm going to talk to you guys about examples because it needs examples for you to understand it. And some of the examples I came up with initially weren't game ones. They were out of game examples. And the things I was writing on the paper was scaring me when I was coming up with justified reasons to explain away very bad behavior. So this could be incredibly dangerous, or it could be the final thing you need to make you absolutely amazing with women. And I weighed that up very heavily before teaching it, and I decided that's a choice for you guys to take. Because at the end of the day, the material is out there and you could find it yourself. I've just compiled it. So, first of all, we're going to talk about what is frame control, and more importantly, what is a frame? Some people think that frame is a community term. Raise your hand if you think frame is a community term. There's a couple of people. Everyone's like, I'm not putting my hand up now. Fuck that, you loaded that question. Frame is not a community term, okay? It's been around a lot longer. It's political sciences. It's been used in the propaganda machine, as I said. It's essentially used to alter perceptions. Some people say that a frame is the underlying assumption beneath the situation. It's more than that. A frame is your perception, understanding, and ideas of a given situation or event. It's how you perceive that event to be. And each one of us perceives it completely differently. So we're going to give some examples here. Let's take this, use your imagination, knife, and imagine that I am standing here like this. The perception that you probably get of that is that I'm a crazy man in the corner of a room with a knife threatening to stab people, which is pretty fair. But I'm going to alter the perception by increasing elements. For example, 4 women surrounding him go, Roger, you're so funny. Suddenly, he's a comedian. He's joking, he's having a laugh, he's pretending to be somebody, he's reenacting a movie. The situation just changed by me giving you new information. If a man is walking down the street and after a moment, he starts rapidly opening and closing one eye, I want you to shout out to me what he's doing. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Ready? Try again. Think of a word that would cover, a single word that rhymes with ink that would cover what that was doing. 3, 2, 1. Wink. Some said blink, some said wink. Gotcha. To some of you, that's a wink. To others of you, who's blinking. Your perceptions were different from the same story. And I really fucked you with the ink thing. Okay, whatever. So even then, you can talk about my perception of that was even different to yours, because I knew the event that you didn't know, and I knew the ink rhymed with both. See how your perceptions are getting messed around. And we're just talking. I'm just talking to you guys as an audience. I'm going to teach you how to understand exactly what's happening step by step and to break it down, which is why I said this is very heavy, but it's also incredibly powerful. A man walks into a nightclub with 2 women on his arm. A lot of you are thinking, lucky guy. But I suspect, unless you've ever heard me give that example before, you're not thinking that it's a guy taking his 2 sisters to a nightclub and chaperoning them for his mum because they don't want them getting hit on. Your situations can change by adding new information. Frame control is your ability to influence somebody else's perception of a given event or situation. I want you to think about that just for a second and realize just how powerful that can be from game. When you talk to a girl, she makes a decision about you within, 3 seconds we teach that? 10 seconds, she makes a decision? What if you had the ability to alter that perception? Really, that's what we all want. I know that somewhere in this crowd is an ugly man. I'm not going to point anyone out, but I know that you're thinking, I'm really ugly. Women won't like me because I'm not hot. I don't know who you are, but I know that somewhere someone thinks that. This alone would give you the ability to alter her perception of looks, to alter her perception of your attractiveness. That's really what game is about. This is a subject that I pretty much have only ever taught my instructors. This is why my instructors are some of the best in the world. Some of my instructors, you won't even know are my instructors because they now teach for competitive companies and aren't allowed by their contract to say that I taught them because it would look bad. But I promise you that I've got something in the region of 10 to 12 top world-class instructors out there that I've taught. And a lot of them have been taught this subject. And it is what differentiates them from your average PUA, because they've got this ability to alter somebody's perception of an event. Now, it's not guaranteed. It's not 100% guaranteed. It's fraud. You can't always know the correct way to do it. But I tell you what, it can make a massive difference in your approach to doing it. What you're attempting to do in any given situation is create frame resonance. You've got your perception of the event, and you've got her perception of the event. Your goal is to make the perceptions of the event resonate with each other. And specifically, hers resonate with yours. You want her to believe that your view of the event matches hers, and they resonate together. Now, frame resonance is a very powerful thing. There are 4 different ways to achieve it. And we're going to talk about the different ways. We're going to talk about examples for each one. The first one is frame bridging. And this is the one that gives PUAs so much problem. And it's the easiest. It's called a frame bridge because it has a logistical problem that needs to be solved. Like building a bridge over water. There's not an issue with both of the countries not wanting to be together. They just don't have the bridge. So someone needs to build that bridge. An example of this is you're attracted to the girl. She's attracted to you. So you both want each other. That's a good thing. But she's the designated driver and has to take her friends home. That's a logistical issue. You can fix that with $50 for a cab ride and send her friends home in a cab. Problem solved. PUAs overcomplicate that. They call that a shit test. And you know what they do to shit tests? They punish it. Do you know how fucked up that is? I got this guy, one of my friends, he's gaming this chick, and he wants to take her out on a Thursday night. He goes, hey, do you want to come out on Wednesday? She goes, I can't make it. He's like, why? She goes, I've got an exam on Friday, I've got to revise. He goes, okay, how about Thursday? She goes, no, I've got this exam on Friday, I need to revise beforehand. So then he hangs up the phone, and he phones me, he goes, my girlfriend's being a bitch. I'm like, why is she being a bitch? He's like, she's giving me some shit about she's got to revise for an exam. I was like, is she a student? He's like, yeah. I'm like, you know it's exam week, right? He goes, look, if she was attracted to me, it wouldn't fucking matter. I'm like, no, dude, it does matter, trust me. Like, he goes, Adam, look, I know you don't believe in them, but this is a shit test, all right? And I know how to handle this. I'm like, all right, how do you handle it? He goes, I'm going to punish that shit. He goes, I'm going to ignore her, make her crawl back to me. I'm like, dude, she's just revising for a test. Like, chill the fuck out. Meet up with her on Saturday. No, because then I'm buying into her frame. What? None of this makes sense anymore. You don't even know what a frame is. You don't even know what you're talking about. You're just using community words. He goes, yeah, she's probably a fucking lesbian anyway. Seriously, come on. Like, you got to see it for what it is. It's not a shit test. They would teach you to punish that behavior. Game teaches you to punish a logistical issue in frame. Make sure you understand exactly what it is and see it for what it is. If she's attracted to you and she wants you, and there's only a logistical problem that's stopping it, fix it. Frame bridge. Bridge the gap. Allow the resonance to occur. What if she's got work in the morning? Meet her the next day. Drive her to work. Tell her, don't worry about it. Trust me, it'll be fine. You'll be there on time. Whatever. Fix the logistical issue. Make it okay. Do not see it as a matter of, I had a chick, she goes to me, hey Adam, I really want to sleep with you tonight. I was like, yeah, I want to sleep with you too. She goes, but I've got to take my friends home. I was like, okay, I'll follow your cab and my bike. She goes, okay. I followed her cab, she took her friends home, I went in her bedroom and I fucked her. Great. I didn't go, what is this, some kind of shit test? I didn't deal with it I didn't go well, your friends should be able to get their own way home. Aren't they strong enough? Aren't you enough of a leader amongst women to be able to do that? Fuck that crap, man. See it for what it is and solve it. Frame bridge. Fix the logistical issue. Next on the list, you have something called frame amplification. Now, with frame amplification, what you're looking to do is amplify your frame around hers. For example, you're talking about sex. Maybe your favorite sexual position. Like, what kind of sexual positions do you like? Suddenly, out of nowhere, she goes, oh no, I don't believe in sex without a strong bond. That's a shit test, right? Punish the behavior, or frame amplify it. You just turn around and go, well, of course, like, who has sex when there's not a bond? I mean, if there's not some kind of like attraction between you or some kind of chemistry, like, I wouldn't want to fuck a chick like that, no way. You've got to have a bond, but if you've got that bond, what's your favorite position? Shit test dealt with. It's not a shit test, it's an objection. You just didn't have the same kind of frame resonance. You had different views. Her view was that you were just trying to fuck her too early. You obviously sexually escalated, I've coined that term. Somebody buy sexualated.com. Sexually escalated, yeah? Somebody's actually on their computer right now. Sexually escalated. You haven't done it correctly. She's not comfortable. She's freaking out that you're trying to sleep with her. Your frames aren't aligned. But that's okay. You only have to amplify it to create the resonance. No problem. They're not too bad. It's just a little bit off. She's still talking to you. Next is a frame extension. Now, in this one, you're going to add something onto whatever you previously said. You're talking to her perhaps, and this is great for like building rapport with people. Like, a lot of resonance is great at keeping the rapport, which is really powerful, because if you can keep rapport with somebody and keep it sexual, then the game's over. Like, they've got a good connection with you and it's sexual, it's over. So what you're trying to do in the frame extension is add something onto your previous frame. So for example, you're talking to the chick, yeah, I love outdoor pursuits, like I'm into rock climbing, I love doing that, do a lot of windsurfing, sailing, hang gliding, paragliding, sometimes I parachute out of a plane and then go scuba diving after I land, like I love that kind of stuff. And she goes, oh my God, I just go clubbing, like you'd never get me doing that, I just go clubbing. You go, oh, that's great, that's what I'm talking about, like the active kind of lifestyle. You know, you go out clubbing, you do something physical and active, that's so cool. Yeah, I get what you mean. Like, for me, it's the parachuting stuff, but I did the clubbing thing as well. It's great, it's so much fun. You extend it to create the resonance, so she can feel that rapport with you. And on this particular situation, it's a very great way of building rapport. And each of these different techniques is used for something different. With frame bridging, you're using it to fix a logistical problem. You don't use the different techniques when you want to, you use them when they see fit. Frame bridging is great for logistics. Frame amplification is great for building rapport with somebody in the early stages. Use the different parts for the different elements. Now, my favorite is frame transformation. And it's my favorite because there is no viable frame resonance there. You cannot possibly get them, apparently, to resonate. And yet, we're going to make that happen. And that's why this is really interesting for me, because when I first realized this was capable of doing this, I realized how powerful it was. So first of all, we're going to create a situation that is as fucked up as possible. So let's try this. I'm a PUA, and I'm very alpha. Not only am I alpha, but all women want me. And I'm pre-selected. I'm great. That's my frame, okay? Her frame. You're alpha. And all women want you. And they're all attracted to you, and you fuck them. So I'm not going to touch you, because I don't want that kind of guy. Oops. Now you're in trouble. Oh, backfire. What are you going to do? There are definitely some PUAs in the world that suffer from that problem. If only they knew how to use frame transformation. Let's get a little bit theoretical. Here's your frame, here's hers. And they can't go together. We can't bridge them, we can't amplify it to encompass it, we can't extend it to create a connection. They're not going to go together. What we're going to do is find a point in the future where they could. And then we're going to stitch them together in the future and bring it back. Because right now they won't go together. But by imagining the future, we can make them fit. Because it's imagination, it's made up. Then we can bring it back and it will make sense. This is what I like to call fuzzy woman logic. Okay? Like guys, we kind of think very logical. It makes a lot of sense when you go through it. So, in this situation, there's no way it's going to happen. And one of the easiest ways of doing that is to agree with her. You're right. It sucks. I am alpha. I am attractive. I do have pre-selection. Women do want me. And because of that, I never meet the one special one that treats me different. Never. At that point in the future, that I hope that I'll meet a girl like you. That sees me as I am and doesn't just take me for being this gorgeous, masculine man hunk that I am right now. Someone that can see through that and see me as a person and look past this superficiality greatness that I have. And she goes, really? Oh my God, you're so misunderstood. That's the kind of guy I want. Done. So, frame transformation, very powerful. I'm going to give you another example, okay? Because it's my favorite one. How about this? You met a chick and you want to take her home and fuck her. She doesn't believe in one-night stands. Oops. You've only just met her. So, we're going to do it, right? What do we want to do? We want to find that future point, connect them, and bring it back. And the easiest way of finding the future point is to start by agreeing with her. Yeah, I hate one-night stands. I would never do a one-night stand. In fact, I'm completely against, I don't even do one-night stands. When I sleep with a girl, it's multiple. It's going to happen more than once. But I also don't believe in jumping into a relationship. Because I think that's messed up. People jump into a relationship with a girl they don't really know. I think people should keep it fun. I love that about you. You don't believe in one-night stands. That's cool. It means I know you're not a slut. That's great. Listen, man. Waffles or pancakes? Frame, transform. Move it along. Keep it. Make sure that it's happening. Find that point. Stitch them together. Agree, and then keep building. There is no such thing as a shit test. It's just a different frame that needs to be patched together. Now, there are some things that can hinder and constrain the framing effort. One of them is higher belief systems. If they have a higher belief system, if there is something in their mind that they perceive as being higher importance than your imposed frame, it won't work. For example, the same night lay situation. She's a virgin. She's like, I'm waiting for my one true love. Now you're in trouble. No matter how often you promise you're going to sleep with her, it's not important enough against her, I'm waiting for my one true love. You have to be aware of that and understand that in some situations, you either have to find a higher belief system that she believes in, not that you believe in, that she believes in, and use that, i.e., propose, or you're going to have to think of other ways of doing it. With virgins specifically, you may want to think about a more long-term kind of game, but that's for you guys to work out. As I said, this is we could explain frame transformation a lot at this point and really mess somebody up. So let's just leave it like that. If she's a virgin, that's her belief, that's okay, she's allowed to have that. Higher belief systems, respect them, as well as understand how powerful they are. The other thing is believability. It's not just her higher belief system, is what you're saying completely ridiculous? For example, in the situation of I'm really alpha and all women want me, and she doesn't agree with that, you can be like, well, no, today is Saturday. On Saturdays, I'm so much lower. On a Saturday, my alphaness, I'm beta, basically, on a Saturday. Sunday, alpha again. Saturday, I'm beta. It doesn't work. It's not believable. You're full of shit. You're lying. You're just trying to say that to get me. You're backtracking. It doesn't work. Your belief system has to be of equal importance to match it and make it happen. These are all the different types of verbal frame control that I've identified. There's probably more, but the ones that I've identified. Like I said, it's a pretty heavy subject. There's a lot of theory, there's a lot of tough stuff in this, but when used correctly, it's ridiculously powerful. Like, you can use it to win arguments. I gave an example. I was talking earlier to you guys about how I gamed free chocolate. I used the same technique. All I did was I made our frames resonate by giving them good enough reasons for giving me the chocolate, that they were going to get a sale. I created the resonance. So there's a lot of ways that this can be used, from getting free chocolates to getting girls. So there's a lot of techniques that you can get out of this. But it really is about understanding it and playing with it and using it on a small level. Now, there's another side of frame control beyond the verbal stuff that we've just spoken about. And the other side is physical frame control. And now this subject is one that I've kept very, very secret. In fact, even my instructor who's sitting there has no idea. Psych's like, no idea. I've only taught this a couple of times, again, to very close friends. Physical frame control is ridiculously fun, okay? And I use it all the time. And I've been a bit hesitant about teaching it because I use it so often myself, because it's really fun to use. And now I say it, everyone's going to be watching me and be like, I know what you're doing, you evil man. But I wanted to teach it, and I wanted to give it away for free, so I figured the 21 conference is a good place to do it. Because again, I hate people that overcharge for stuff. So, first of all, we're going to understand some dynamics of groups. Like, let's look at some group dynamics. First of all, have you ever bothered to look at a group of people in conversation? If you've ever watched them, you'll notice that the way they maneuver each other is very interesting. First of all, we talk about locking in. We all know about locking in from a body language point of view. To show you very quickly, if I put my foot here and lean back, this would be considered locked in if there were people around me. I look more comfortable and people kind of lean into me. I have the perceived power in the group. I suppose you could say I was in the power seat. But everyone here around is looking at me being in this position. Now, that's very minor frame control, physical frame control. We're going to crank it up a bit, and we're going to look at it in a lot more depth than most PUAs have probably ever looked at it before. So we're going to start by looking at conversation. I don't know if you've noticed it, there's a great book by Robin Dunbar that illustrates human conversation and says, did you know that most human beings only have conversations amongst 4 people? If you analyze 4 people talking, there is one topic of conversation, typically. It might break down into 2 and 2, but typically it's one conversation. If a 5th person is added, the conversation almost always breaks down into 2, with 2 people talking and 3 people. That's because the human brain can pretty much only keep track of what 3 other people say at once in a conversation. The exception is a speech. Because there are definitely people that are like, no, I've had a conversation with 8 people. No, you had a speech. You walked in and spoke at 7 people. And some of them ignored you. Some of them spoke to each other. So you weren't really conversing with them. Actual conversation is typically held by a maximum of 4 people. This makes game very interesting. Because when you go out in nightclubs, you typically see 2 sets, 3 sets, and 4 sets. And by knowing the number of set that you're about to walk into, you can alter your game based on the amount of people you're approaching. For example, if I've got a group of 4, which is quite a common set, 2 girls, 2 guys, or maybe 4 girls, 3 girls, 1 guy, whatever it is, 4, the inclusion of myself makes a 5th. Which means I know that conversation is going to break down into 2 segments, a 3 and a 2. Now, we all know how powerful isolation is. You don't want to be stuck in a 3 set, you want to be in a 2 set. And I know that if there were 4 people there, and I get in, I become the 5th member, that conversation is about to break into a 2 and a 3. And I'm probably the only one geeky enough to know that's going to happen. And because I know that, I can use physical frame control to make sure that I'm in conversation with my target, which breaks almost every single poor rule of ignoring the one that you're interested in. And the way I do it is by going in and having a speech first. A speech, of course, is engaging the entire group. At that point, I can ignore my target. I go in and talk to the whole group, get speaking to them, they all think I'm cool. Then, at the point when I don't want to be an entertaining monkey anymore, maybe after a minute and a half, I break down in conversation with my target. I've now moved my conversation to be specifically me and her. And I can do it with a simple justification of, oh, you know what, I didn't even get your opinion. What do you think? And I can move around to just her. And by shifting my body so the other 3 are locked out, I've got perfect conversation with her. Now, I would like to show you guys exactly how that looks. What I would love is 4 people to come up here with me. So can I have 4 volunteers very quickly? So 1, 2, 3, 4. Cool, wicked guys. Come on here for a sec. Thanks guys. Cool man. Cheers, Tommy. Thanks mate, appreciate it. Yeah.
25.
Cool.
What's that, 30?
Cool. Hey Carlos, good to see you. Yeah. Brilliant. All right guys, so if you guys can all stand in a line, look that way. Okay, most groups don't stand in a line, but it's going to be absolutely perfect for me to demonstrate. What I can do is if I can get you to come forward just a little bit, and if you could come forward just a little bit, that kind of gives the dynamic of 4. If you imagine we've got 4 set, we've split it up a bit just to look, but you'll see the example anyway. So I would approach from this point and open all 4 of them with a speech, with a simple talk. And I can observe the one that I want to lock out. Now bear in mind, these guys would typically be standing in a cube talking to each other. You can move into the cube just so everyone can see. They would typically be standing like this talking. There we go. And I've come into the whole group, I've opened it up and I'm speaking to all of them. And I can see the one that I want to lock off. I can make it very easy first and I'll do a hard one afterwards. The easiest one to lock off, of course, would be Tommy or this guy. And the way I do that is by talking to the whole group. You know, I didn't even get your opinion. Hey, so what do you think? And I physically move into the group because I know the conversation is going to break into a 3 and a 2. Because I know that, I know it's not rude. Because I know that these 3 will talk amongst themselves behind my back, enabling me to talk here. And what I want to do, if I'm really clever, and we'll talk about it in a minute, is make sure that he can't lock eye contact with them as well. But we'll cover that in a second. But that's the easy one, right? I picked off the one next to me. What I really want to do is pick off one of the ones on the other side, because that's even harder. If you're clever, you'll approach the group correctly, and it won't be an issue. But say I'm not that clever. I approach the group, I do the speech. Oh my God, I didn't even get your opinion. So what was that? I've done exactly the same thing again. My back is now locking off the other 3. No matter how the group is standing, I can always make that happen. And it's a very powerful tool to know. Cheers, guys. Thanks ever so much. Guys, just a round of applause for you guys. That's the full sets. But I'll give you some other set examples as well. Cheers, guys. I might get a couple more up in a second. So that's a 4 set. I know that if I open a 4 set, it's going to be a 5 set. So I can go straight in with a big speech to all and then lock off my target after about a minute and a half. And I get mini isolation. It's not as good as isolation, but it's definitely worth it. It enables you to run some very good games for a long time. What if it was a 3 set? If I open a 3 set, then I know I'm about to make it a 4 set. And at that point, I know that the inclusion of myself into the group is going to make sure the conversation could stay as the 4 of us just talking, or it could descend into a 2. So it's pretty much the same rule as the 5, except it isn't necessarily going to happen. So with a 4 set, you're probably going to want to keep the conversation flowing amongst you all for a while first, as there is a very good chance that the rest of the group will be listening to whatever you're saying to the girl. So bear that in mind. You're not going to get the same kind of isolation because the other 2 could just sit and join in to what you're saying. So it's good to know. It's good to know that that could happen. You might need a bit more of an isolation. You might need a justification to go and get a drink. The next set is a 2 set. The inclusion of yourself makes it a 3 set, which is the most awkward set. You have no option but to do a speech at both or a conversation amongst the 3 of you. They're your only options. So what's a better suggestion for you is to potentially enlist a wing. Now you may not have a wing with you. When I did all my game, with the exception of Amog Scott, who I promised you was not called Amog Scott as a joke. Like he was not a wing, he was an Amog. Amog Scott would come with me to a nightclub, go and do his own thing, and then try and open the girl I was talking to. And I used to like him as a wing because it got my skills nice and sharp. Because you have to be waiting for when's Amog Scott going to turn up. I'm just going to go to the bathroom. Oh, there he is. So you're going to be prepared for Amog Scott. And it was a good way of practicing. Like he was a good guy to spar with. But sometimes you want to enlist the aid of another wing, some random dude in the club. I promise you, go up to any guy who looks a little bit confident, who's standing on his own, and be like, hey buddy, listen, there's 2 girls over there. I want to go and talk to them. Do you want to come with me? We'll split them up. I'm not going to do any damage on my own. I've done this so many times. The guy's like, yeah, no problem. And the great news is his game is going to suck because he's unlikely to be a PUA. So the 2 of you can go in. You can just choose the girl you want, get isolation. The girl's occupied with that guy. Don't stay in set with the guy. Don't make the mistake of assuming he's going to be a great wing. He won't be. He'll be saying, yeah, I don't even know this guy, I just met him. He's such a tit. Like, he will do that stuff because he doesn't know you. So you bring him in and you take your girl and go. Leave that girl with that dude. And your friends are going to be like, oh, so are you and that guy friends? Have you known him for a while? Like, hey, he seems friendly enough. Whatever. Stay out of it. Don't hang around that guy because you don't know what he's going to be like. So you move your girl off, and that's one of the best ways to do a 2-set. Just grab another wing from somewhere. It makes so much more sense to do that. So that's a 2-set, a 3-set, and a 4-set. And that's pretty much the main sets you're going to find in a nightclub. If you find a 1-set, obviously it's not a problem. And anything bigger than a 5-set, you can kind of like do the math yourself and piece it together. Now, all of these little things enable you to piece it together to create mini isolation, which gives you a big advantage. But there are other forms of physical frame control that you can use. And they can be incredibly powerful. What I'm going to do for this, I am definitely going to get another volunteer. Can I have somebody else come up? Someone that didn't come up before, maybe? Raise your hand. Somebody? Go for it. Wicked. What's your name? Dave. Nice to meet you, Dave. You can grab your hand. Cool, man. Up here if you just come. Perfect. Just brilliant. Thanks very much. Cool. So, what we just did then was a whole bunch of very physical frame control. I do this stuff all the time with people, and they never notice. So, we're going to go through it and break it down very slowly, okay? We're going to take you back down the stairs. Okay, so we'll start. I'm doing it again now. I'm leading him, right? This is all leading. So from here, shook his hand. Okay, I didn't let go. What I did instead was I tugged the inside of his wrist. I don't know if any of you guys have ever done wrist locks or Aikido. You can't get out of that. It's a really fucked up thing to do to somebody. You pull the wrist, it brings him up. But I don't want to do that. I don't want to yank it. I don't want to hurt the guy. So I'll lead him up and I'll pull his arm instead. Then I'll spin him around and get him standing here looking at you guys. I don't like that position. So I'll pull him and move him and get to this side. What I'm doing is constantly keeping him moving. If he's used to me leading him just up some steps, I can lead him at any point anywhere else. And if you're talking to a girl, girls follow naturally. As dancers, they're followers. So they're used to a guy leading them. So you can get them in any position. Guys are like, I tried to lock in, but I didn't know how. If you're using physical frame control, it's easy. Because you've got used to the basic movements, and then at that point, you can literally just, okay, great, so tell me more about yourself. And lock in. You can move into position. I could sit on the end of the sofa. Wait, I can't hear you. Come here for a second. And you can pull them, and they will do whatever you say. Basic leading, physical frame control is all about just gentle movements. Remember some basic things about touch. If you hold for longer than 1.5 seconds, it kind of gets a bit weird. So when you're moving somebody, everything wants to be really fast. So I'll take an arm, I'll hold it for a bit, but my hands are always moving as I'm going around it. They don't really stay in one place for too long. It's just for about 1.5 seconds. Keep it fast and quick. Now there's some great uses for this. Fold your arms and be really mean. Okay, some girl, you see them standing like that, they're all locked off, right? And I see students, I'm like, did you know that if you could just open her arms, she would warm up to you? Because that's her defense. She's using it to get cold. You just need to open it. And one of the best ways of opening it is you can tell her some kind of joke that you think will make her laugh. Make it a real joke. Make it something you read off the internet. I don't know, something that's hysterically funny. If you can't come up with a joke, then you can just be talking anyway and just go for the force. It's easier with a joke. And essentially you just, oh my God, no way, so tell me more. And it opens it. You literally just pull the arm out of the way in conversation. And it's more believable if I'm talking, oh, that's great, oh my God, I love that, so tell me more. And there it is, bam, the arms come open. At that point, she's not likely to just fold them up again, she'll keep them open. It will open up her whole body language. When her body language is opened up, she'll open up verbally to you, she'll be friendlier. Anytime you get a girl that's a bitch and she's like that, open her up. If she's trying to be a hard ass and stand sexy and cool. Perfect. I know, it's great, it's good, you're doing good. So like, he's standing sexy and cool, and the chick's like, shit, she's posing, she's making sure, and you know, she might be looking around the room, and that's fucked up, because now she's flirting with everybody else, and I don't want her to. I want that to change. So if she's there, I'm like, oh my God, hey, you know what, tell me, you were talking earlier about your house, tell me more about your house. And there, I shift around. I'm locked in, she's not. The whole form moves, because she's on high heels, they have to balance. She has to change it and move, and now no one's giving her validation around the room, because she can't lock eye contact with them. We spoke about this earlier with the 4-set. If, I'll put you there just for a second. He can be making eyes behind me. I'm talking and gaming, but he can be looking at his friend, and I'm screwed. I don't want them to make that eye contact. Why? Because girls use girl code. Now, I've decoded a lot of it, but not all of it. And I'm not going to be that good. If I see him go like this, like, it's going to make me feel bad. I don't want that girl code going on, so I can shift it. I can do it by simply moving myself, or I can move them. Something that I like to teach is this simple step where by just moving 5 inches, you can drastically increase the attraction from the other person. And all I do is just take a simple 5-inch movement, and bam, I've got it. I can break off the eye contact, stop him looking at the other people. And that's all you have to do. These are very simple physical things that you can move around and create and make happen the way you want. Thanks ever so much, buddy. Cool, round of applause to this guy. Okay. The final thing I'm going to leave you with today on the subject of frame control, specifically physical frame control, is a very stupid game that you can play with your friends. This is one that you can do instantly. The rest of today was a bit, I'm sure you'll be using the physical stuff with each other. You're probably going to push each other and get in a fight outside the room. But this is one that you can use that works really, really well. And have you ever had that situation where you go into a set and then they all start talking with each other? And then you can't get in. They're talking, they know each other from high school, and suddenly you've got no conversation. You want to get into that conversation, but there's no break. There's no pause in the conversation. I'm going to show you a couple of ways, and you can do this for your friends. It's really good fun to do, because it will just stop somebody's train of thought. When you're thinking and speaking at the same time, you can only hold so much information in your head. And human beings are very easily distracted. And the minute we get distracted, we lose what we're saying. And you've seen someone go, oh, what was I saying? Now, what you're going to do is you're going to make them lose what they're saying. And before they say, what was I saying? You're going to start speaking. So they never say it, and instead they just shut the fuck up like they're supposed to, right? And that's why this gets really funny. So there's a number of ways of doing it. One of the ones that I like is, you've all heard the cough, that's shit. There's better ways of doing it. One of my favorites is to reach through a group. So, if my drink was on a bar table, and the group was here and I was talking, it doesn't even have to be my drink. It could be the bartender, or it could be a placemat, or it could be whatever. I might want to put my coat there. It doesn't matter. I just need a justified reason to go through the group. Then in the middle of the conversation, I might just go, oh, excuse me, I just want to grab my drink. Cheers, guys, thanks. You know, I was thinking, bam, then you're in. That's straight away in. You just start talking because you've broken up their flow of conversation. The act of putting your hand right through their eyesight and blocking their view will fuck up whatever they were saying. They'll pause for the moment that you do the drink, and you watch them. They'll all go like this. They'll watch you do it, and they'll stop speaking. You will have maybe 2 seconds of silence, where they'll just go, so I was talking to my friends, and they might not even stop speaking, it might just become a bit blurry. So they might be like, yeah, so we were talking yesterday, and that's what you'll get. At that point, you're just going to be like, oh, cheers, I just grabbed my drink. Sorry, guys. You know what, you were talking about your friends, it made me think, one of my friends the other day, bam, there you are. You break into it. You can do it with a noise. You could cough if you wanted to. It's a bit lame. It's much better to do a physical thing. The last one, this is the one that you can do for your friends, because I know I'm getting a couple of eyes about speed and time and finishing on time. And I want to do a Q&A before we officially finish. But the last one you can do, and this is great to do with your mates, is you're standing there and your friends are talking and you want to interrupt them. You want to talk over your friend. Your friend might even be talking to you. Take 3 fingers and using the back of them, tap the inside of their elbow once. Just go, or maybe twice. They will stop. Because they've been taught for years, they've been trained as a child, that if somebody has something important to say to you, they tap you to attract your attention. If they're in the middle of conversation, you tap them, they'll stop and look at you. Now, some people get really annoyed by tapping, so you may not want to do it to random people that you meet, like girls, but to your friends, it's the funniest thing, because you'll always get away with it because you know them. You can just tap them a couple of times and go, hey dude, and then speak. And they will lose whatever they were saying. It's just gone straight away as they realize that they have to give you this attention that they're supposed to give you. And then you get to talk over them. It gets to the point that me and one of my friends, my instructor, the guy that taught me game, I developed this with him. When we talk to each other, we pretty much just tap each other's arms as we're speaking to get the other one to shut the fuck up. But it is very funny. I can't tell you how powerful it is. Like, go away after this, use it and see. It will just fuck somebody's conversation up. They can't think about it while you're tapping them and talking to them. And they'll stop and they'll speak to you. These are the core elements that I teach of frame control. There are so many different ways these can be used. I've taught you guys like the very core basics, right? We could talk about examples forever. We could look into all the different potential examples. But as long as you follow these great rules, as long as you realize they're not shit tests, they're just somebody else's perception of the world. Girls, why would she, do you think that girls really enjoy giving guys shit tests? No. They enjoy giving douchebags shit tests. They enjoy fucking over a guy who's being a dick or someone who thinks they're great. It's her perception of you. That's what's fucked up. Alter it. It doesn't have to be that way. You can change that perception. I used to open girls, one of my favorite openers, which used to base on this. I've never taught this one. I used to go up to them and go, I've got a random question to ask you. I was talking to my friends the other day, and we make some analysis about girls' friends, especially their guy friends. From your point of view, are the guys in your life really, really nice and cool guys, or are they all dicks? Be honest with me. And she'll tell me. Some of the girls will be like, they're all fucking dicks. Guys are always dicks, they just want to sleep with you. I'll be, oh my God, that's so bad. Why would they do that? That's terrible, man. Like, guys just use girls? That's really bad. And I'm using frame control because her perception of all guys is that they're dicks. So I get instant connection with her by being really, really nice. Or she'll be, oh my God, my guy friends are amazing. They're always out for me, they always look after me. I'm like their little sister. I'm like, yeah, it's probably because they want to fuck you. And I become a dick. Because I'm the one guy in her life who isn't just being nice. I stand out again and I build that resonance because every other guy in her life is being nice and not sleeping with her. So I'm going to be the one guy who isn't nice to her. And I can make that decision right off the bat of opening to just show you guys one way of using this frame stuff for something beyond what it's supposed to be used for. It's incredibly powerful stuff, especially the verbal stuff. The physical stuff is incredibly powerful in terms of generating isolation from girls, in terms of, I'm getting the slides over to but in terms of making sure that you get the positioning of the group the way you want. You can get the lock-ins the way you want. You can be talking to the girl that you want. You don't have to be stuck there in a conversation thinking, what do I say next? How do I get into this? Oh my God, they're all talking about their high school friends. You can just break through it. If you learn anything in game, if I had to break down what game actually was, what is game? It is not running around clubs opening chicks. It is not. It isn't sitting in a room with a bunch of dudes talking about game. It is not. It is about understanding people. It is about being empathic to what they want and making sure that you present yourself in the correct way that you want to come across at. It's altering their perception of you so they don't just go by based on their typical examples or their preconceived notions of you. They view you differently. It's about leading. It's about making sure that you close, that you know what you want and that you take it. If you follow these things I've taught you in this lesson, I promise you, you will have no need to sit down and continue studying this stuff because you'll be so busy getting laid you won't have time for it. Guys, thank you ever so much. I've been AFC. I've got like 5 minutes left, I think, so I did want to free it up for Q&As. So anyone's got questions, please raise your hand. Yo!
Could you give another example of frame amplification? I didn't really get it. Okay,
so frame amplification, all you're looking to do is to grow the situation beyond what it really was without changing it, so you're not going to alter what you're saying. I suppose, let's say, for example, you're talking to a girl, and she says to you that she disagrees with your love of video games, okay? You like video games, and she doesn't really like video games. Now, you don't want to add anything to it, you just want to amplify it. So then you're going to say, you've never played a video game? She's like, yeah, of course I have. I go, okay, what's your favorite game? She goes, I don't know, Pac-Man. You go, see, that's what I'm saying. Video games are great. I'm not in love with all video games, just the good video games. You amplified it. You didn't add anything new, you kept to your original point, and instead you got information from her and amplified it around it. You encompassed it. Make sense? Like I said, there's different uses. You're not going to use that to get one night stand, but you could use that to make sure that she doesn't think you're a geek that sits and is playing World of Warcraft. Yeah. Cool. Next question. I love it when I do talk so well. Everyone's like, I don't need anything else. Fuck, I'm amazing now. Nobody else? Everyone understands? Yes, go for it.
Can you give other examples of like leading where you're talking in like sets of 3, 4 people? Like, okay, like for example, you were mentioning about, entering and going to the person you want to talk, like asking for their opinion or something. Mm-hmm. Can you give other examples of stuff like that?
Well, like, look, you're going into a 3 or 4 set. Remember, you've got to bear in mind, from what we're talking about, the closing stuff, what is your aim here? Your aim is not to suddenly fuck her on the dance floor. It might be, but it's probably not. Your aim is more making sure the whole group like you, that you can then do something later. And at some point, you want isolation. So what you can do is go into the whole group, make friends with them, mini-isolate the one you want, and then you're probably going to want to go back in the whole group. You're probably going to want to shift between having a speech with everybody or a conversation with everybody or mini-isolating with different people, and you're going to keep that going for the whole night. Something I say to people, the real damage happens at 4 a.m., okay? The magic happens when everybody starts going home. You can make it happen earlier, you can. But I like to think of those as the exceptions rather than the rule. Not every single dude walks into a nightclub and leaves with half an hour with a chick. They typically go there, party for a while, hang out with the girls. They've not gone there to get picked up, they've really gone there to hang out with their mates. Getting picked up is part of it. So you kind of want to stay in that group. You don't really want to lead them anywhere. You just want to keep the conversation flowing, prove that you're comfortable in that conversation. The point you want to lead is the end of the night. And you're going to preface that by talking about food earlier in the night, And then at the end of the night, when you're ready to make that jump, you're going to use the food thing or whatever thing you're going to use to bounce them out. Make sense? And that's when you're going to leave. And at that point, you're literally going to move them to a different venue. Maybe to go and get food afterwards, maybe to go back to your place, whichever you feel comfortable, whichever you justify. Cool? Another question, there was one around here. Yeah, Nate.
So you said in the situation with the 4 set plus U equals 5 that you're talking to the group for about a minute and a half, and then you mini isolate your target. So the question is, that minute and a half, I mean, what are you're running value, or you're trying to do investment with the whole group?
Yeah, you're doing a whole speech to the group. I mean, from stuff like, I was going with comfort, so I typically would, ideally, I'd have opened the group once earlier as a pre-open. So now I'm coming back in and I'm going to hook it. And when I hook it, I might be like, oh my God, it's you guys again. Hey, how's your night going? How do you guys know each other? And I'll get talking to all of them. So how do you know each other? You know them through that. Oh, that's great. And what's the occasion? Oh my God, that's so cool. That's awesome. Oh my God, I didn't even speak to you. Hang on one sec, guys. So, how do you know these guys? And then I'm in. Got it? The minute and a half is basically fluff talk of how do you guys know each other? What's the occasion? You know, who's here? Who can I build rapport with very quickly so the group want to keep talking to me? And then I'll bounce into isolation with the one I want. I might stay longer than a minute and a half. I mean, I was using it like just to pick a figure. Sometimes I've stayed in that beginning stage for 5 minutes. Sometimes 30 seconds. Sometimes, you know, I've stayed in it for half an hour. But then you're a bit more of a performer monkey rather than keeping it a comfortable conversation. I typically would go in, try and just keep the conversation going as best I can initially on just fluffy stuff that I don't really care about, and then get into isolation with one-by-one mini isolation. Make sense?
Yes.
Cool. Next. Yeah.
All the logistics stuff you talked about earlier is geared toward getting her back to your place. What do you think about getting to her place?
Oh, I love this one. Okay. I never had this problem because I've had my own apartment since I was 18 years old. So I've never had an issue with this. And then people started saying to me, yeah, it's all well and good for you to say that, Adam. You've got your own place. What about us guys that don't have our own place? We live with our mums. We can't bring someone back. So I made sure that for 6 months I wouldn't get laid unless it was in her house. And I came up with this great way of doing it. I think this is my way of doing it, right? I would meet the girl, and I'd go on my day 2 with her or what have you, because I couldn't bring her back to my house, so I went on a day 2. And then on the day 2, I would go to a movie store, a store that sold DVDs. And then while I was there, I'd have a look around and go, oh, what's your favorite movie? So I'd find her favorite movie, and I'd find my favorite movie, and we'd be just like comparing movies. And then I'd pick up a movie that she hadn't seen. I'd be like, have you seen this one? Yeah, okay, great. Have you seen this one? No, I haven't seen it. It's amazing. Or, oh, I've never seen it either. This movie looks great. We should totally do like a movie watching thing. And the girl's like, okay. You go, look, okay, let's do this. I'll get the movie and the popcorn. You provide the cinema. Get it? She goes, okay. So you go, cool. So you go and buy the DVD together. If you want to get really fucked up, you can give her the DVD to look after. Now, you've got to kind of trust her that she's not just using you. You need to know you've got attraction. But if you've got attraction, you give her the DVD to look after. Every time she looks at it, she'll think of you. And that's really fucked up, but it's a very powerful tool. Because if she's looking at it, think of you, she's not really thinking of anyone else. So she's building a lot of investment. This is something we teach a lot more on the courses, but like the guys that have, or there's a lot of you actually have had boot camps with me, but you know that investment's very powerful. And if she's consistently investing in that DVD because it's sitting on her thing, she's thinking, oh my God, I have to do that thing. Oh my God, I have to do that thing. So then she'll actually start chasing you to come over and watch it. And then you just go over the house, watch it, business as usual at her end. Yeah? Very easy. Cool. Next. No? Nope. And then about 8 people put their hands up.
This is a quick question. Let's say you're talking to some random girl you just meet in a club, opening a set, and she blows you out. What would be the best way to get back in it and change your frame, if you will?
If a chick's completely blown you out, first of all, know you've done something wrong initially, right? That's why she's blown you out. Something you've done has upset her. Girls really aren't. Very rarely are they naturally nasty. Very rarely. If they're naturally nasty, they've had a really bad day, everyone's been hitting on them, or you've done something really bad. That's like the reason. If I get blown out that way, the first thing I do is I make sure I don't look like I got blown out. So I was like, hey, listen, I didn't mean to ruin your night. Have a great night, I'll catch you around. Because the only way everyone else in the club knows it went bad, you can't hear a girl you're talking to in conversation. No one else knows what's happening. Just make sure it looks like it's good. You know, just have a great night, I'll see you around. Yeah, but keep it cool. That way no one knows it went bad, and you'll keep your value up in the club in general. I would actually ignore her, and I would instead go around and have pre-selection elsewhere. So what I'd try and do is get her to see that other girls are actually really comfortable with me. And then later on, I might come back and I'll be like, listen, I feel really bad earlier. Like, I obviously completely freaked you out, and I think you misunderstood. Maybe you thought I was hitting on you or something. I'm really not that kind of guy. I just wanted to say hi, and I felt really bad about it all night. So I just wanted to say, look, you know, I don't want to freak you out anymore. Just have a great night, please. You know, and just to let you know, honestly, I didn't mean anything by it. 9 times out of 10, when I come back in with something like that, if she hasn't opened me with my pre-selection, which often happens, they go, no, look, they start apologizing. Oh, I had a bad night, look, some guys hit on me. Oh my God, no way. I bet they said, like, do you like, who lies more, guys or girls? Yeah, how'd you know? Fucking freaks. I've seen them all night going around. They learned some shit from some guy called AFC Adam, what a twat. So I would basically build a lot of rapport with her on that. Of course, what I'm doing there, for anyone that listens, is frame resonance. I'm basically making a connection between me and her on the point that we both don't like the guys that hit on her, which enables me to hit on her. Cool. All right, guys, I think that's all we've got time for now. So, guys, thank you ever so much for having me down.